Hello, and thank you for tuning in to HR Show and Tell. I'm your host, Michelle Berg, Chief Visionary Officer of Elevated HR. In today's webisode, we get to turn the table on podcast hosts of the Recruitment Flex, Shelley Billinghurst and Serge Boudreau. In this episode, we talk recruitment, and of course recruitment. From trends in technology to whether or not we should be posting salaries on job ads or using Programmatic, Shelley and Serge are never shy to lay their thoughts out on the line. It all begins right now. So my question is, how did the heck did the two of you come together to start this podcast to begin with, the Recruitment Flex? Where did that start? Where was it?
You take this one, Serge. You start, and then I'll correct him.
Okay.
You'll correct me, exactly. So I'll put it in perspective.
Married. I do want to say this. They're not married, but they do act like it some days.
Yeah, some days there's questions at home between my relationship with Shelley.
We talk so much. Oh my God.
So I've known Shelley for a long time. So I actually met Shelley, and I'll give you a little bit of story of the first time meeting Shelley. So I was leading the team at Workopolis. One of her senior reps left, so it was my job to go in to make sure that Shelley and everything we did with Shelley was good at, I think you were at NMAX back then.
NMAX, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I walked in, and I'll tell you, Shelley, that handshake, my hand still hurts from that handshake. And I'm like, her knowledge and everything that she knew was really impressive. So in most clients that I dealt with had basic knowledge of recruitment. A lot of them were HR people that had a recruitment on the side of the desk. This was not Shelley. Then I worked with her at Indeed. And then I decided before the pandemic hit, I'm like, I need to be out there more. I think I have good knowledge. I have good contacts. I can probably do a pretty good podcast. And the reality is funny when we talk about the story, someone said on Facebook, and I thought it related, it's like, how many friends, do you have more friends that have a podcast or involved in multi-level marketing? That seems to be so there is a ton of podcasters, like a ton out there, but it is the war of attrition in the sense that most podcasts don't go over 5 episodes. If you want to bring consistency, it's keep on doing, you're going to grow your audience. And we're now at 55 episodes. But to take a step back, I called Shelley to be one of my first guests because, like it or not, this girl knows what she's talking about, and she's the type of guest. But then like a minute in, and just our chemistry has always been very strong. I'm like, why don't you co-host with me? And then that started the journey of starting a podcast together, and we've been inseparable ever since. So that's really how it started. It wasn't even the pandemic. A lot of people think, because a lot of podcasts started in the pandemic, nothing to do with it. I had it planned, and me and Shelley had already talked about it before the pandemic. We did launch in April. I realized that doing a podcast right is actually a lot of work where I had no issue on audio editing, video editing, anything. I had no clue. So I had to learn everything from scratch. So it's been a pretty incredible journey, and I could not have picked a better podcast partner as Shelley. We do disagree a lot, and it's a little bit on our styles and the way we approach it. But yeah, I say we disagree. We agree a lot too. Like, would you agree, Shelley? What's your thoughts?
Yeah. So, do you know, the one part you did leave out, Serge, is the fact that we loved the Disrupt HR, Michelle.
Yeah.
And I absolutely, like, every time I had been to one, there's something so incredibly memorable. But we wanted to do something like what else was out there just here in Canada for recruiters, talent acquisition. That was kind of the other kind of underlying driver, because we're not doing it for money. Like, honestly, was I think it's cost us money. Right. So it was really just, we both have this passion for recruitment, and yes, we have a little bit different perspectives on things. Absolutely. And just amazing. I think, what did you say, Serge? 50 episodes?
50, next episode, 56.
Yeah, 56. Well, you think we'd run out of things to talk about? No.
And that's also because like things are constantly changing too. And that's what I think is, kind of incredible. And honestly, even why I love doing this too, is it makes me learn. Like, it's hosting a show like this is my accountability buddy on staying on top of the trends. And then we get to do it in a super fun way by talking to super cool people. But I would agree with what you've built. And again, one more plug for the Recruitment Flex. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be 100 more. But when Lori, I can't recall if it was when Lori Rudiman was on your show or if it was something that she and I had said in a conversation once before too. But when we were talking about her writing the book, or perhaps you were, she had said something along the lines of, you want to write the book that you want to see on the bookshelf. And what it sounds like is you've developed the podcast you wanted to listen to.
Yes.
Yeah. And can I be selfish in a sense too, is there's a ton of people that I've wanted to meet for a long time that are the influencers or really the thought leaders in the industry. And what a better way to get them on your podcast. Like, we've built relationships with all these people that in a normal context would have been extremely hard. The one person that I've been trying, and I'm jealous, like I'm really jealous, Michelle, is you got Lars Schmidt, which I've been trying to get on my podcast. He never responded to me. He's the first one that's never responded.
Oh, maybe I should reach out rather than a guy.
Maybe. Also, just so you know, I got him on because my last name is Schmidt.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So I was like, you gotta help a sister out here. I mean,
Yes.
So that's literally all I did. That's how I wrote him.
Oh, that's amazing. Because I did connect, and we haven't had one person say no to come on the show, which
Nobody says no to Serge, actually.
No one can say
no. Seriously, like he's arranged some really impressive guests. So hats off to you, Serge.
Yeah, and like the Chat and Cheese, you know, they both been on that? I can't remember.
Yeah,
just the one. Yeah.
They both been on individually, and they both we did the crossover, which was a really big deal. Shelley represented us on the Chat and Cheese show, just killed it too. Like, did an amazing job. Because put in perspective, when it comes to our industry, the reason I started a podcast too was the Chat and Cheese show. I got tons of my information from that show, and I just love how they spoke and they approach. It was no bullshit in their approach. Yeah. So having them on, and we do have some news coming up that are somehow related to those guys, but we can't share yet.
That's pretty fun. So stay tuned, in other words.
Stay tuned.
Right. Okay, so 18 minutes of bullshit. Let's get into the now.
Let's get down to the good stuff.
Can we swear? Okay, I just realized.
Oh, yeah. Are we allowed? Can we just be ourselves?
Have we met?
Okay.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. Okay.
All right. So let's get into it. Let's start this off with, well, first of all, I can tell already there are HR practitioners, there are recruiters that are a part of the attendees right now. There are also business owners who is struggling with recruitment. And I think the one thing that I know that I always get right out of the gate is, how much is it? Could you help me to recruit? And then as soon as they ask, you say, yes, there's a cost to that. They're like, oh God, I can't spend that much, you know? And for us, I'll be honest, we even undercut everyone. And that's still too much. So Shelley, I think, well, actually both of you are good at this, but I'm gonna send this one over to Shelley. How do you convince even small business owners to spend the money around recruiting and to really invest at that time? Because a good recruiter, there's a dime a dozen out there, there's no question. And they came out of the woodworks during the pandemic, even though it's like really bad time to start hiring. But anyways, long story short, how do you convince people, what is the worth and the value of a really great recruitment partner?
So, you know, I guess my approach has always been leave everyone in a better shape than what you found them. So sharing knowledge has been so central and core to who I am, whether it was, you know, back in the 90s in the agency world and then it's in corporate recruitment. So my approach is always teach them, show them and have them understand each step and why each step is important. And it is a process, and to follow the process, because sure enough, if you skip one step thinking, you know, it won't matter. No, you know, any recipe doesn't turn out if you don't follow it. So it's, if companies don't see value, then that's okay, because you just go, they can do it themselves. It's kind of like marketing, right, Michelle? Like, everybody thinks they know how to do marketing. I mean, throwing a few things up on Instagram and calling that marketing, throwing up an ad on Indeed and saying, you know how to recruit. It's usually when things have gone really badly, that especially small companies, and they realize, Jesus, you know what? I actually got what I asked for. What did I ask for? Nothing. Oh, guess what? Guess what you got?
Right.
Nothing. And so there are things that as a recruiter, if you are showing them the value and having them step through it with you, like if somebody is a business owner, just, like, God, I just don't even want to talk about recruitment. Well, you're probably not going to be in business very long. Because I don't know about you, but I mean, if you have this half-ass approach to who you hire, you probably have the same approach to how you run your company, right? Like, your most important job is to bring on the very best. And again, that's in context. The very best could be, really somebody who's mediocre. Because guess what? You're not Microsoft.
Right.
You're not Apple. You're not even close.
Yeah.
And so to think that you can attract this top talent, well, no, you can't. But you can find good, and you can have a great experience with it. So I never talk anybody into anything, Michelle. If they don't see the value, that's okay. Because there's lots of companies out there that really do see the value of helping them hire great people.
Shelley, you were making a lot of sense, Dale, until you jumped in and said you're okay just hiring good, which I'm like, okay, maybe that's realistic, but is it really what you're trying to achieve? Because think about it, a small business owner, and you know this, Michelle, what is more critical than the people you bring in? Like, in reality, one really good person can be the equivalent of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 when you're trying to scale to that length. So
Mhm.
I agree with you, Shelley, on the aspect of, like, you never should force anyone to do anything, and you can learn, as far as you should get a concept of how to recruit. But to think that you can just drop an ad on Indeed and get the top candidate, is you're risking a lot. Like, you're risking that first, second, fifth employee. If they're bad, they can sink your company really quickly.
Yep.
So I'm the opposite. I try to convince everyone to look at an external force, and as far as when it comes to recruitment, and it's not like, maybe you don't want to spend the placement fees. That's fair enough. But look at other alternatives and educate yourself on how to recruit. Anything you'd ever want to know about recruitment is on the internet for free. Free, like, you can actually figure it out. So take the time and try to understand, reach out to people that are helpful in this industry to get their tips and advice. So there's ways you can do it in a very limited budget, but there's never any excuse. And that drives me crazy when we talk about this, like, well, I don't know how to do it, or take the time, because in reality, recruitment is the most important acquisition you will do in your company. So don't
Don't cheap out.
don't cheap out.
And I can even say from my own perspective, when we do it for ourselves, again, there's the idea that we should be able to do it really well for ourselves. And the truth is, I've screwed up too over the 10 years. And when I take myself out and I push, I give myself that arm's length in between, for me doing everything from posting to the phone interview, to the interview, to the group interview, and being part of that. When I give myself some distance, I get way better results. And so having someone almost who isn't necessarily living and breathing what it is that you do all the time, it's often why I'll get my mentors or my coaches to also interview someone at times. Because I often I fall in love with all the candidates, like especially
You
when
can see the good in everyone.
well,
Yeah.
and that seems like kind of like a BS thing when you hear it from me, but they, the really good ones go, oh, Michelle, I've read every blog and I've listened to every podcast. And I'm like, oh yeah, tell me more, and then let's get married. So That's what I do.
Well, there is a difference between attracting and also selection, and these are two different skill sets. And I think the attracting is very much where a recruiter does a really good job. The selection, HR should be masters of selection. Should be a tool they have in their tool belt, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what's that skill? Because a lot of times recruiters I equate in a good way, not in a negative way, but when they are so good, they could actually also have a dual income or a dual role as sales, because they are selling a product, they're attracting, they've got the client service skills, and the client service goes both from the employee or from the candidate as well as the hiring manager. They're making sure both are happy, right? So that's like, and I don't think a lot of people realize how much of that is actually required in the recruitment role. And that's why that's a very special skill set. But if you're coming back to that selection piece that HR people need to have, what does that look like? What's that skill?
Yeah, well, let's take a step back. I do want to revisit a little bit what the skill set between sales and recruitment, why they're very similar. And a lot of people have some confusion. I think what we've done with HR is put them in very unnatural situations. This is not the skill set and what they've wanted to do. And in reality, if you look at it, an HR business partner has 7, 8 areas that they touch. Recruitment needs to be a focused activity, to your earlier point. In reality, a lot of people don't go in HR to do recruitment. It's for the employee services, for leadership, coaching. There's many elements that are very attractive, which I think are extremely important to an organization. A recruiter and a salespeople are very, very similar. Imagine, like, there's hunters and farmers in sales. There's hunters and farmers in recruitment. The process is the same. Lead generation comes from marketing. In the sales world, in the recruitment world, it comes from recruitment marketing, and you guide them through the process, and you need to close the best candidate. If we go into selection, recruiters don't always have the best selection, because generally recruiters are a lot like salespeople, and we want to love everyone. So I think you might be more a salesperson than you are an HR person in that sense. Maybe in reality, because I know I have that challenge, and I know Shelley does it too, is we fall in love with a ton of people. HR, when you're looking at selection, there's tons of ways to dig in deep on interview, very similar as how you would do to an investigation. But the difference is, an investigation, you can be very direct and you're trying to dig out information. As I think the way interviewers are now, and they have to be, is it has to be very conversational. It needs to be comfortable for the interviewer and the interviewee, and you need to figure out ways to dig in deeper and get the right answers while still making them comfortable. Shelley, you've got a ton more experience in interviewing than I do, so I'm gonna let you give your advice.
Well, thanks, Serge, because I really like where you were going, because I was just about to, hoping you would hand the microphone back over to me, because when it comes to interviewing, everybody, again, it's kind of like marketing. Everybody thinks they know what they're doing. I think great recruiters, the difference between a good recruiter and a great recruiter is that you know what to ask, because you know what the ideal response is. Like, asking great questions is, I think, a skill that very, very few, the great ones do. That ability to ask a great question and know what constitutes a good answer. We get so, love my HR friends out there, but they're still stuck in the 1950s. If I hear one more behavioral descriptive interview question, I am going to scream. Please, it is so outdated and it is so lazy. Really, and it's a bad candidate experience. So, if you ever remember being asked those horrible behavioral descriptive interview questions, and they beg for fabrication. People have learned years ago, as soon as you get an interview request, what do? They Google behavioral descriptive interviewing. Guess what? It's all there. Anyone can fabricate an answer to that. But I think great recruiters know how to get you to talk, know how to get you to say more about that or tell us more about that. And they just keep probing until I've done very little talking. but the candidate has really shared and they just feel like they can share and open up. So that's also what a great salesperson does. If you really develop a relationship with your client, with your customer, then you really understand what's important to them and you get them to talk to you.
So just
So
before we keep going, we've got two really cool questions here. First of all is you keep talking about being like a really good recruiter. Define that. What is a really good recruiter? Is it the number of successful placements, the number of connections? How do you define good?
well, there's good, and that is you do your job, like you find candidates, you represent the company in a positive light. A great recruiter can deliver with the same level of energy and enthusiasm the first time as the 100th time when you're talking about why come work for us.
Yeah.
And it is the same level of energy. The same thing with a great salesperson. A great salesperson, I can hear no how many times, and I'm still, next time I'm back on the phone or Zoom, I give you the same energy level. That's a talent. That is a talent that great recruiters have.
I agree with that. And one of like my favorite episodes, we had Elena Valentine and James Ellis, and we talked about the difference between an artist and a worker. And when we think about artists, we're thinking about creative, but generally everyone can be an artist in their world of work and how they do things. And to me, a really good recruiter is one that looks at recruiting as something to master, something that it's just not like filling a job and moving to the next one, is getting some passion and some results that satisfy you outside of work, out of recruiting. So being an artist in recruitment, mastering your craft, to me, it shows that you're going to be a really good recruiter, or you're already a really good recruiter.
Yeah, totally.
Because
Okay.
metrics can be bullshit, like it, like in reality.
Well, same thing though with sales too, right? When you're following a CRM system, and yes, there's, I think, what's the adage is that activity breeds success, and I think that there is, the what you get or what you give is what you're going to get. I believe there is that, but then it's also not just being a robot either. I mean, it's really connecting. The best salespeople that I've ever met, and I have one actually on my team even, she knows how to connect and like really connect, and you don't even know you're being sold. I think that's the same way with the recruiter.
It is.
That
Absolutely.
passion.
That is my point.
And I think, Shelley, that's where you are an artist as well. And I struggle with this because if I don't totally buy into the company, I have a hard time bullshitting that I don't totally buy into the company too. And so it's the art of the story though. That's how you convince people to join. And I think,
So here's the fine tune, Michelle. I'd never convince anybody of anything.
Okay, fair.
So a great recruiter, I will start with the same thing your salesperson probably does. And that is, Michelle, tell me about you. What's important to you? Talk more about that. So tell me more. Like, how did that happen? Why do you feel that way? I'm getting all the information I need to know whether or not what I have to offer is going to resonate with you. Just like a great salesperson, right? It's because I let you do the talking first. I let you tell me what you want, because, trying to talk somebody into it. Yeah. You know what? As a salesperson, Serge and I think fall victim to this all the time. We're like, you can sell us anything. Right? Like, we love everybody and great salespeople do. And so, but that's really, we're not the norm. And I would never want to talk anybody into anything. And I think my numbers throughout the years absolutely held true. There was, I just got a LinkedIn notice of a guy that we recruited and brought on board 11 years ago. He's just changing jobs now. Like it's that sort of, if people get people to tell you what's in their heart, what's really important to them. And if you know that your organization or the organization you're recruiting for, that that's truly something they can deliver on, it's magical.
Yeah. No, that's a fair comment. In terms of, this is another question here, just going back to what you were talking about before, behavioral questions. I remember too, so was something kind of unique with my career is when I started in human resources, I got the job first, and then I decided, oh shit, I should probably have some school in this. And so at the same time that I was doing it live, and I went back to school and got, the extension basically in human resources. And I remember going through the behavioral questions and I was like, this is such crap. Like, this doesn't work in real life. This doesn't give you the actual, and I'm like, thank you, college, for teaching me what not to do. So I've always really stood, would definitely agree with you that behavioral questions and the scoring systems and things like that just, again, also became robotic, also didn't get the real person, didn't get the authenticity that's required, I think, as well. But what is one of the worst behavioral questions you have heard, Shelley?
Tell us about a time when you disagreed with your supervisor.
Right.
What was the subject? Tell me what was the objective and what was the outcome and what did you learn from it? Okay, so how someone just asked that question is absolutely begging for bullshit. Because anybody can skate their way through, tell us about a time. It doesn't mean you actually saw it happen. I actually saw it happen on an office of the episode or an episode of The Office, right? All I'm doing is I'm just repeating what I saw in The Office, right? And you believe it, right? But that's not what you asked them. You asked them to tell you about a time. You didn't ask me if I was actually there.
Right.
You assumed it.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Yeah.
Can I give you a tip to replace behavioral questions and what's worked really well if you really want to dig in? One of the things that I always say is like, so when I call and I don't even assume it because I might not even do it, but when I call your past supervisor, what are they going to say about this? And it automatically comes out a lot of truth because they assume I am going to call their past supervisor, and then you dig in deeper at that. But anyways,
oh no, I love that one. I love that one too. Actually, when they tell me about this awesome project that they do from a team perspective, they'll give me all the details and it'll be this beautiful thing. And then I go, great, can I talk to the person that was on your team? And then this is so like probably bad of me, but anyways, I love watching the blood drip from their face when they're getting caught. But yeah, anyways, I'm probably in the wrong career, but for a different conversation. Sorry, Serge, I cut you off there. Where were you going to go?
No, all good. No, I was trying to figure out because there is different ways that you can interview, and part of it is asking very direct questions and getting the right answer. I agree. Behavioral questions like drive me crazy. I'm not a fan. If you're still doing and listening to this, please stop. There's better ways for you to do this.
Yeah. Cool.
And stop being so lazy.
Yes.
Honestly, I think it's just, you got to put some effort into this.
Well, is it lazy, Shelley? I don't think it's lazy. I think listen, you haven't learned a better way. What are you expecting?
So, and again, the difference between good and great. Are you just going to, you walk into a new job, you're the new senior recruiter, and they hand you a manual that has been photocopied since 1977 on behavioral descriptive interview questions. You have a choice. Will you just simply stay with status quo, or are you actually going to advocate for a better way for candidates to have a better experience? So, if you want to be sheep and just follow along, that's how it happens. Right. Like, that is a true story. When I first started at NMAX, they literally had a binder in a desk, paper binder in a desk of interview questions.
Yeah.
And that's what we're supposed to use.
Yeah. Well, too, like I keep, often will be asked, can I just get a list of questions that I can ask in the interview? Even that doesn't matter if they're behavioral questions. I like, again, my inner voice, I don't usually say this because they are still my customers or my clients. Do your job. Like, what do you want to know? Like, don't go to Google. This is your role. You're the hiring manager. Or we'll often get, well, what did you ask? I'm like, you don't want to regurgitate what I already know because I've told you everything I know. Do your job, figure it out, do the work. Again, recruitment, from my perspective, should probably be the hardest part of it, as it relates to people, because you are protecting your culture, you are protecting your brand. And there are people that can make it easier for you. but don't just do stuff to check off boxes. Okay, we like literally have 20 minutes, and I have three major topics that I know you're both very passionate about, and we've already been asked one question about it. So let's get into tech right now.
Okay.
Hottest tech, hottest trends. While maintaining, this is the key here, because we all hear about candidate experience and how shitty it is right now. How many candidates are being ghosted? I know I've done it. I feel bad. I'm apologizing to any of my listeners that I have ghosted in the past before. I know I suck at it. But how can we use technology to make the recruitment process more human? Because this person in particular does not think the video interview one way is helping. And I love this because you have two different opinions on this.
Yeah,
you just teed up an argument, didn't you,
yeah,
Michelle?
exactly. We're not even going to talk about that one because I think we've argued it too much. Shelley is wrong, so I'm just going to move on from there. So I think you nailed it. So think about recruitment. I don't think there's been as much money invested in recruitment than there has been in the past 20 years. And we've actually gone the opposite way. We're actually giving a shittier candidate experience, and we're not delivering to hiring teams the right candidates. So technology will not fix shittiness, for lack of a better word. It'll just enhance how bad you do things. So in reality, when you're looking at technology, I think the biggest thing for me and how recruitment, because like I do hear about the ghosting. Have I ghosted candidates? Probably. Has most recruiters ghosted candidates? Not because we wanted to do it. When you have 500 resumes and you're going through a day, you're trying to figure out, you are going to drop off some people. Recruiters are really good at a couple of things: relationship with hiring managers and making sure that we have the right requirements and we're finding that talent for them, and the candidate. All the rest, so it is all things that should be automated. And this is appointment scheduling, moving candidates through the ATS, all even candidate matching. And I know there's a lot of discussions out there as far as what technology that resumes knock out resumes, ATS knockout resumes. That's bullshit. 100% of resumes that are out there right now are being knocked out by people. So any resume coach that's listening and saying, hey, I can like skip the ATS algorithm, and that's bullshit. You can't do that unless you have magic powers that I'm not aware of. But in reality, if we go back to it, I think the technology that's going to improve the lives is taking all the minutia in the middle and taking it away from recruiters, and have recruiters focus on relationships on both sides. It's really going to be the driver in technology. Anything else is noise to me right now.
Okay, so what's the technology? What's the latest trends that we like some of our listeners can hop on or try out? What do you recommend?
Well, one of the things that is a big challenge is sourcing. Automating sourcing is something that we're seeing dramatically a lot more. And what I mean by that is, yes, you can post a job and you can get candidates, but really to get the top candidates, you do have to go find them where they are. There's going to be exception to that. So the perfect example, so Seek Out, who is basically automate sourcing by taking all these different sources and putting one place and finding who's engaged in the market. Just got a Series B funding, I think for like $65 million. Yeah, $65 million. So that is one of the aspects when it comes to automating sourcing, that is critical. Then there's tons of automating as far as candidate matching in that sense, but I really do like Seek Out.
I do too. We actually have a license for it as well.
Do you?
And it like the creepiest but coolest thing for it is, and I probably shouldn't be doing it for this purpose, but I do. Anyways, you find someone that you love. So let's say Serge, I can find you, and I say, I want to find another Serge. You can clone that person and they'll find it within 100-kilometer, and they'll give you all the whatever public profiles or GitHub profiles, whatever you've got, it'll give you and their phone number and their email. It is so much better than LinkedIn Recruiter. Like if you're still using LinkedIn Recruiter, just stop, because I think you're wasting your money.
It's 2010.
Yeah.
Is it 2010 again?
Yeah. Obviously LinkedIn is not a sponsor.
Oh my God. Obviously not. No, obviously not.
There's little things like that. Like they're still working out their kinks. That's what the 65 million is for, clearly. But when you talk to them too, what I thought was really cool, like there are a bunch of developers that left Microsoft, and that just their passion behind it, because they're still technically small, although obviously they're about to explode. But even the diversity portion of it is
Yeah.
I really like it. Like I've certainly capitalized on that already too, and it was pretty great. And yeah. So anyways, Shelley, do you have access or have you used it before? Oh, just to quickly answer here, it's called Seek Out.
All in one word.
Yeah.
And Shelley wants to talk about video interviewing because she loves it, right?
Yeah, totally. I heard.
No, I'm not, Serge. We already decided that's been beat to death. There is something though, Michelle, I think a little closer to home that I think a lot of people really should get on board with. And so my biggest, I think value that I bring to clients is helping them understand how to write a kick-ass job ad. Something that will absolutely attract who you're looking for. This is a challenge. Recruiters are not really good creative writers. Not that you have to be creative, but you've got to put some fucking energy into it. Like you read these job ads and it's like they're lifeless. They are dead, lifeless. And so why would somebody even want to apply to a job that sounds like you can barely lift your arms, you're so tired? So put some life into it. So there are some really great technologies, because the other part of this is my favorite of shitty job ads is when, you tag on the bottom your diversity and inclusion statement, and that's supposed to make you somehow diverse. So what I love to do is take that job ad and copy it into the gender decoder. It's a free app, and it will tell you if that ad has been written male or female. Very simple. One aspect. Oh, by the way, it's free. And guess what? You will find almost 9 times out of 10 companies, when they plaster that little, diversity, equity, and inclusion statement on the bottom, and you run that job ad through the decoder, it is masculine written. Like, I mean, over the top masculine written. So what's the solution? Well, first of all, recruiters don't need another thing to do. How about an app as part of your tech stack that will actually read, kind of like, when you're on Google Docs and it'll say, oh, you spelled that wrong. Well, this actually is software that goes in and reads it, makes suggestions, and augments your job ads to make them actually sound appealing. Oh, and ensuring that you are being inclusive in your language, because there's little subtleties about your language and how you have written this job ad that will repel, which maybe what you want to do is repel people, okay, and attract.
Right.
So, and it's called Textio is one of them. There's a few of them out there, but I think right now Textio is kind of leading the charge. So great for companies who've got like really big job ad libraries that are crap, which is just about everybody.
Yeah.
Well, putting that in perspective, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's something that the recruiters and anyone listening is, look at your job description first. I am a very visual person, so the actual words in a job description don't always mean a lot to me when I'm trying to figure out the culture. So I am going to plug one of my favorite technologies, and I've been using them for years. Full disclaimer, I'm doing consulting for them, Visi Recruiter. So Visi Recruiter takes your job ad, automatically converts it into a really nice, clean visual format with photos, nice text box, icons that really is easy to read. It's great for social media sharing. I'll give you an idea. I used it in my past company, and people that were using or reading it, the intention to apply went up dramatically, went from 40% to almost 20%, just
which
by
is
having
staggering.
for a more visual job ad. So it's employers need a way to figure out to stand out. So wherever that is it more visual job ads? Is it better recruitment marketing? You need to stand out. And none of this stock photo bullshit. If you've got stock photos on anything, please take them away. Right now, I'd rather have a picture of Susie it works in the office, that is a real person, than a stock image.
So where do you post visual job ads then? Because it's not necessarily compatible within like the typical, a link or Indeed even, right? Is this on your website or where do you do that?
Yeah, so how it works is, and it is integrated with a lot of ATS that you can actually send it, but what Indeed does is it only allows the text job base, because when you click on it, it goes to a second pane. And when you click on it, would bring it to that job description. But where I think there's a lot of benefit in how you go out there. So LinkedIn, it shares perfectly, looks great in the feed, it takes a visual, puts it out there. But where recruiters are failing and trying to figure out a way is everyone's playing in the same sandbox. Everyone is on Indeed. Like, give you an idea, Indeed has what, 14 million unique visitors going to the site every month. There's 19 million people in Canada at work. So if you're a small or medium employer, you're competing with companies with 10 times the budget. There's companies spending $50,000, $100,000 a month just on Indeed. Why not try to be different? Leverage social media. You should understand Facebook targeted ads. You should understand Google AdWords. And this is where the visual can really help you stand out in that sense. So two parts to it.
I'm going to go right now into, you talk about something in your last one where it was just the two of you. You didn't have a guest, but you were kind of hyping us up for what's to come. But you used the word programmatic quite a bit in that, but didn't really, and again, I probably should just know, but you didn't really actually define what programmatic is. But can you define that for us and tell us like how to leverage that, or what is leveraging that in fact?
Yeah, I'll take this, Shelley, and you can add on in some way. So I'm very passionate about programmatic.
I'm not.
Yeah, you're not at all. But
I think it's bullshit.
really,
It's 10% of the recruitment in the US, to only 10% of adopted programmatic. You've been beating this poor animal for so long. No,
Let
10,
okay,
10%.
let me explain what programmatic is, then you can make your misinformed opinion on it. Programmatic is basically using technology instead of people to buy your media, basically, and to optimize your media. Basically, you are bidding in real time for media spot for, and if you put it in context, programmatic has been around in traditional marketing for 25 years. It's only really been in recruitment for the last 5 years. If you ask a marketing person on programmatic, it's a no-brainer to them, because why not? It saves you a massive amount of time. It saves you a massive amount of money. The challenge why it's not being adopted in Canada is because we don't know anything in recruitment and HR when it comes to marketing, and we haven't tried to learn. The retention rate on customers in the US using programmatic is 97%. They never go back. Why not? You're saving tons of money. You're letting the system maximize your budget. Instead of spending $10,000 in Indeed, you can get the same traffic and value spending $4,000 if you're using programmatic. Why wouldn't you use it in that sense? So, Shelley, misinformed opinion. I'm not even going to let you rebut on that.
Okay. If you want to know the truth, just message me after the webinar here, and I'll tell you the cold, hard truth about programmatic in Canada. The fact is, what you alluded to just now, Serge, 14 million unique visitors on a single site. At present, if you want to get in front of candidates, this is by and large, we're not talking about the purple squirrels and the unicorns. By and large, you've got them in one place. Why are you going programmatic? Unless
to maximize that spend.
Well, so unless,
they
of course,
will make.
If you honestly believe that the candidates are elsewhere, fill your boots. Fill your boots. But I think the reality is, where is all the candidate traffic?
Well, this is why you leverage programmatic to spend on Indeed, if that's the market you're in. And I don't know why everyone wants to play in the same sandbox. Like,
well,
why?
So do you know what?
Indeed, why do you want to be there? Why
That's
don't
the Canadian way?
Yeah.
We want to do what everyone else is doing. Like, nobody wants to be the first. Nobody wants to be the early adopter, right? Like, we're all going to follow suit.
I love that you're totally geeking out on this. Just to be clear, programmatic though is basically a way to spend your advertising dollars, but on job ads. Yes.
Automated.
100%. It uses technology instead of people.
Okay. Perfect.
Yes. Yes.
So there's a real quick question here, and I find it pretty interesting. Facebook targeted ads. A company recently lost in the courts because Facebook targets on an age, and it was seen as discrimination. So can you use Facebook for this, or should we, or how do you use Facebook then if that's going to be the case?
Well, it's no longer an issue because Facebook doesn't allow you to target by age. There's so many
Yeah.
criterias now that basically you can't get yourself in trouble. Part of the challenge that's happened with that is a lot harder to target than it was in the past. And what I mean by target is, to give you an example, I used to do a ton of recruiting in Texas, and in population areas that I knew was heavy Spanish, we would target Spanish ads in that market to really hit that demographic. Can't do that anymore. Can't hit by demographic, can't hit by age. So not really a concern. Where you're targeting needs to be bigger. So say you're recruiting in Calgary. In the past, say you're a restaurant, you could target. I don't know. First of all, let's take a step back. Why would you want to target by age? Like, first of all, that's just like, if you're in HR and recruitment and you're just targeting in that sense, it's probably not a good idea and you should probably back down. But I think the biggest thing for Facebook is you can still target areas, but you can't target demographics, and they've blocked it in Canada and US. So it's not really a concern anymore.
Okay. So 4 minutes left. This is the hot topic, because this is what I have fights on this every single day with clients. Thoughts on putting compensation on job ads. I think we're both in the same, or we're all three of us are in the same boat here on our beliefs around it. Is that quite simply, yes, we should add compensation to job ads. Like, this is no brainer. However, Serge, on one of your podcasts too, you had shared that you hadn't been totally successful at doing that. What kind of got in your way, do you think, and how would you have changed that message now, even after you've done it? How would you try to help others to see the light and put compensation on job ads?
Yeah, I've been trying to do it for 5 years and I have failed in every organization that I've been into. So I don't know if I'm the best to give advice, but in reality, I think there's a couple of factors that are coming. Yes, do we all agree that we should put compensation, we should be transparent? I think we all agree. Shelley, I know you agree based on that podcast. Is it always possible and are organizations ready to do it? No. I think one of the points that I said on that podcast is a lot of companies, for some reason, especially in hot markets, are having to pay a ton to get new talent. And they're very much hesitating to bring up the rest of the talent to the same level that they're bringing a new one. Is that correct? Is that a right approach? Absolutely not. But then we're talking about millions of dollars and potentially in large organizations, billions of dollars. So the easiest way out is just not to be transparent with pay. Is that going to hurt you in the long run? Absolutely. But two factors why you should do it, and where I've gotten traction, even though I haven't closed it, it's legislated already in Colorado. It's going to be legislated in a ton of other places as we go. Probably Alberta is the next one. And the second is Google for Job. Indeed,
Market pressure. Yeah.
The market pressure, they're forcing it to get better, better visibility. You need to be advertising your pay, which is going to force a lot of people that haven't really thought about it in the past. So I think those are the two factors.
Okay, so Shelley, do you know this already? Is if you do use salary or post compensation, are they suggesting like that will get you that higher visibility? Are we seeing that like almost for free, like rather than having to
fact? Yes. And you will also see a better quality candidate, because at the end of the day, that's what we're after.
Yeah.
So if you advertise your salary range, you will find you get less applicants. But recruitment is the only game where that is the point.
Yeah.
You know, attracting 700 people to fill one job means you failed. You failed. Full stop. 700 people to fill one job, you're doing something really wrong. You only need one, right?
Okay.
So you will get better quality.
Okay, we've got two questions here, and then we could do this again, you know.
Okay.
First of all, seek out for the service industry. It probably isn't the best use for that if they don't have like an online profile like LinkedIn or not. I wouldn't use seek out for that. Serge, you mentioned earlier that you read a lot of books and recruiting earlier on. Are there a couple suggestions? And I really think, Shelley, this should be for you too, because I know you're a voracious reader as well. Are there a couple of suggestions you would have for someone like me who is just starting out on the recruitment journey?
Okay, if you're starting on the recruitment journey, the first book you should read is The Robot Proof Recruiter. by Katrina Collier. The other one you should read, especially if you're going in tech or very specialized, is Full Stack Recruiter. It's the Bible of recruitment. Then Shelley, I know you have your favorite. I'm going to drop one. If you're getting into talent acquisition management or getting a better perspective, Tim Sackett's The Talent Fix.
Talent Fix, yeah.
Is probably my favorite book in recruitment overall.
Tim's a good friend of mine too. So yeah, I highly recommend that one as well. Shelley, what were you going to recommend?
My favorite is James Ellis, and this is more specific to employer branding. Because if you get this right, then recruitment just is that much better. And it's called Talent Chooses You by James Ellis. Nice. Hiring better with employer branding. Love it. It's my Bible. Like I've got it like, oh, cool. It is a wonderful one. And of course, the ones that Serge brought up as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And again, there's one more question here around advertising pay will be a requirement in Alberta. Serge or Shelley, who wants to take that one?
I don't know, honestly. Will advertising pay range? I think you might know more than I would, Michelle, but in reality, it's going to happen. It's just when. Yeah. It's not an if right now, I think, just judging by how the states and other provinces are looking at it.
Yeah, so I mean, this is something that Justin Trudeau has been talking about forever, as well as legislating it across Canada. It does make a lot of sense from a wage gap or wage inequity perspective as well. I also love just telling people what this job is worth, right? Rather than the age old, so what do you want to make? I like to be transparent that way too, because I don't want to be the reason, I don't know, that someone undersells themselves as well. And I find with women in general, they tend to go way lower often. And so I just like to be upfront, straight up, and say, this is what the range is. And that is Justin Trudeau's passion. Now, whether or not he's going to be in for much longer. On the flip side, Rachel Notley was already lobbying for it. I know she lost, to Kenny, but I think it just makes a lot of sense. And again, because it's at part of the conversations at that top level, it is a fast solution. It's a proven solution of how you can stop the wage inequities. I think for sure. And again, if you can get ahead of the game, knowing it's coming, you're going to be in so much better shape. Shelley, I still thank you. You saw a job that I had actually just shared. It was for a friend of mine who works at a local company here in Calgary. And I find it so asinine. So I actually sent them the note too that said, hey, this job's in Colorado. It has to have the pay on it. And long story short, they just ignored it. And so to me, when I went and looked, and you said too, I think it's like $10,000 or could be up to $10,000 worth of fines for not posting salaries. That's where Colorado's gone. And I've always seen Calgary as a little Denver. So I think we're well on our way. Do you have to get ready for it now? No, but you may as well convince everyone else. I don't know. That's what I think. Another rant that I could geek out on completely. So it is 1:03 and it is unfortunately time to say goodbye. But I do want to say thank you to all of our guests. If you have already had to drop off, we are not the best at getting the links out afterwards, but I think we figured it out this time. So hopefully the links come out a little bit quicker if you want to re-listen, find out some of the technologies that we've talked about, the books again that you shared. But again, please just listen to the Recruitment Flex because you will learn. Go back. They've got 55 sessions or 55 podcasts, 56, I think you said, that we can listen to. And I know that there's some new news coming up. So be sure to tune in. Again, Serge, Shelley, you are amazing as always. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Have a great week.
Bye. You too.
Bye.